Find my presentation. Here we go. So everybody seeing it?
We can partly see it at the moment, Stefan. We can see the minimized view. I think you just need to go to full screen with it if you can.
Okay. Wait a minute. So better?
Yes, there you are.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
All right. Thank you. So thank you for having me. A lot of titles, but my current work is as you said, as a financial crime specialist, being a money laundering officer for certain for different entities at OVF. But today I like to talk, and that's really something um, I really adored what Natalie was saying, because Natalie was talking about governance and how to build up let's say, a responsive governance structure. I like to turn it around and want to explain what you maybe not do if you're building up governance structures, especially in the anti-money laundering programs and anti-financial fraud programs. So yes, thank you for the introduction. First, what's really important, it's my personal opinion about things. It's not the official statement of my company, that's for sure. So as you all know, there are a lot of scandals out there for the few years. You heard about big scandals in Scandinavia, all the money laundering schemes going on there, and the massive fines have been given by different regulators to very big organizations in the past. So the question is, if we have a certain governments and if we have mature AML programs, so how does it fit together? So how can it be that we still have such huge scandals? And in my time as a consultant, I experienced a lot of, let's say, different ways how to set up governance schemes, and I want to share some observations with you. So if there are still scandals, so we should think about the governance structures, and therefore I'm so grateful that Natalie was explaining how to do it, and maybe I can get into details. So I'm a little bit focused on the EU. Sorry for you guys being in other parts of the world, but of course, as you know, a lot of regulations is going on. It's continuing. We struggle as financial obliged persons, whether you are financial institutions or insurance companies or other obliged persons. It's very difficult to catch up, and it costs a lot of money. And based on my experience as a law enforcement officer, I really questioning if you really tackle the problem. Sometimes it's just still, even they pretend it's not no more rule based. You have to approach. You have to have a risk based approach. I doubt it sometimes. So a lot is going on. So EU is now thinking about a new framework, a 6-pillar action plan. So let's see what's coming. However, just to explain the basic principles. So as a money laundering reporting officer, the regulator is asking you to, of course, to understand your organization, and it all starts with your anti-financial crime, and fraud is, of course, included in that, with a risk analysis. With a risk analysis, that's the basic understanding of the government and the regulators. Then you know the risks, and with your risk-based approach, you tackle the risks. And of course, you need first, second, and third line defense measures to apply. And then, at least the regulators and the supranational, the FATF, they think then you have to apply second line of defense controls, so controls with a financial crime organization, also controls on the first line of defense, and of course you need the internal audit as the third line of defense, and then it should work. Yeah. So in order to do that, of course, a money laundering reporting officer, even a group money laundering reporting officer, is challenged. Sorry to be too quick. So he's challenged to have the appropriate knowledge, of course. So in-depth knowledge about the regulations, in-depth knowledge about the organization, the processes, how everything fits together. And of course, with that team you got, you have to deal with the management. Management needs to understand. And in order to give the framework, you have policies and training, and would be good to have a budget, and at least, not at least, but it's all about data. And now we're coming back to all the other speakers, which are more technical driven. And what I really adore is what Pata was saying. Pata was saying fraud solutions should not work in silos, and that's one little part of the problems I like to tackle and to discuss with you. So what we often saw, or what I have seen with my own consulting company in the past, is it starts with a lack of knowledge of the stuff which is heading or at least working in the AML organization. This shouldn't be the case, but in large organizations, it's difficult to find the right people and to pay them. And second, knowledge of the management. If the management doesn't understand how necessary those safeguards are, it's difficult to get the safeguards in place. What I also saw is a lot of tick the box exercises to please the regulator, checklists, all maybe a kind of show off for auditors. Most times it works, and therefore we have the scandals, because you're really not seeing the real risks sometimes, because you just tick the box and nobody thinking about the real risks or the workarounds. A fraudster, internal fraudster, has created to get the illicit money out. So we have too many policies in general. Policies, and I think Natalie was saying it, if a policy is not tailored to the audience, it doesn't make sense, and it doesn't work. Okay, and then of course the training, and I will come to that. So what I really like in former times, the David Letterman late night show, they had the top 10 of the. So Kartika, can you please stop talking? It's a little bit anyway. So hopefully everybody can hear me. So my personal top 10 of errors and misunderstanding by creating and maintaining anti-financial crime programs. So first of all, it starts with the appointment of the group money laundering reporting officer or the compliance decision maker. So if somebody in the company is available and he has maybe a good track record in other areas, but he will be appointed because everybody knows him, everybody trusts him, maybe it's not the best idea. So you need a real professional guy at the top. So, and the argument to upskill the guy and having right stuff underneath is many times will not work. So even or even more if it's an autocratic type. Second myth Legal professional, a lawyer is the preferred candidate for heading the anti-financial crime team. Well, it makes sense to have somebody to interpret a law, but there are so many skills which you need to understand the organization and to establish the right governance. So, as you heard from other speakers, IT knowledge, that's the key thing, I guess, for the future. So of course you need to interpret the law and some regulations and all the other nice stuff which you have to adhere to, but you need to understand the infrastructure, the IT infrastructure, because it starts with the data. Then you need social skills. If you want to train people, you need to get it over to them in a way that they understand. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Organization knowledge, I already talked about. Audit knowledge, it's all about controls nowadays. So of course you need to do controls, and that's something regulator is demanding from you. So even to execute correct and efficient controls is the key, not ticking the box. And one experience which will be, let's say, supportive is to know the regulator and to know the law enforcement. So that's something which is nice. Of course, maybe the other skills are more dominant, but this is also very helpful to, especially if you have issues and you need to talk to the regulator, it's really helpful to understand their needs. Myth number 3, AFC program is watertight and easy to use. So do it with checklists. Yeah, you can save money, just hire some stuff which is not very educated and give them the right structure and they will do. That's causing the problem, I guess. If people don't understand what they're doing, and I worked for PwC and KPMG, and the young folks, they got training, they did what they had to do, but sometimes they didn't understand. And even from the audit side, it's really important to understand the full picture in order to identify risks. Myth number 4, policies and procedures shall cover all angles for all stakeholders. So I see in very big organizations, multiple departments, compliance departments, writing their own policies. They don't speak to each other. And then you have a stock of, let's say, 50 or even 200. I came across 200 policies for one organization. And who should read that? Who should understand? Who should adhere them? So it's absolutely something I would scrutinize as a regulator because it doesn't work. And the intention of those who are creating those policies to make them fit for all the purposes, demonstrating that you got everything in place for all the stakeholders, it's not working. You need to customize those policies to the audience. Myth number 5, fraud prevention needs to be organized in a different department. That's also a big fight, even I had as a consultant. So it's a legacy. Sometimes it's legacy. Sometimes it's just that departments are fighting with each other for power. It doesn't make sense. You have to get all the dots together. So I really adore the approach of the German regulator. I don't adore everything what they're saying for sure, but they have in their banking law that the money laundering reporting office is also responsible for anti-fraud prevention of fraud. So even you got some departments, and it's really, there are good arguments to have different departments, different kinds of tasks. But in the end, everything needs to come together, and we are dealing with the same data. So again, it's an IT perspective which has been, by the way, stressed by other speakers as well. So something I encourage to think about. Fraud prevention needs a separate IT monitoring system. Of course not. It depends on the fraud. It depends on the data you use. Of course not. There is no one system for all. That's for sure. But think about if you have anti-money laundering systems in place. Some IT providers like to sell other modules. Or you have to question it. Of course, rule-based systems, they can do both, but rule-based is old-fashioned. Maybe there are some algorithms which can fit for different purposes, and I want to encourage especially the compliance officers and the money laundering reporting specialists with IT knowledge to really question it if you shop for systems. Myth number 7. In case of breaches of employees, this issue or the breach can be sorted out without real consequences. Yes, that happened many times. Even I was consulting. It's very frustrating. They just gave the guy a severance pay, and he was off, starting with a new bank, new financial service firm. And this is something which is undermining every government's and every safeguard you want to apply. So it's difficult, especially if it's a guy in the management, but the tone from the top of the management is key, and zero tolerance will contribute to improve the organization and that staff is adhering to. Myth number 8, with introduction of obligations to obtain information from beneficial owner registries. I think because that's not only EU, it's driven by supranational organizations. FATCA is also recommending, so I think it's the same in the US or in other areas in the world. So it's great that there is more transparency in terms who is owning, who is controlling corporates. So of course we have a lot of black spots in the world, and we need to close it down. But how, for example, the EU is doing it, having this kind of, you need a transparency register, that's a nice idea, but in practice, the corporate needs to enter the real ownership information. And imagine, and I know from former work as a police officer, law enforcement officer, organized crime. So imagine the head of organized crime, they'd say, oh, we have some bogus firms everywhere. We work with lawyers and want to prevent real ownership. But with a transparency register, oh, we need to enter our information. So it's really something which is annoying, and it's not cost efficient. And we need, as obliged persons, to be, let's say, working maybe with the banking associations or insurance associations to influence the regulator and governments to set up another, let's say, safeguard, because and that's what they're trying to do. It starts with the notary offices. They need to be obliged. It starts with the registration office to ask the right questions, to get the documents in place. So this is something which is really costing a lot of money, a lot of efforts, a lot of staff needs to deal with it. Myth number 9, and we only have 10 myths in this session. Anti-crime fraud, anti-financial crime monitoring systems. They are as good as the data entered. And what I saw, and I think especially the vendors, the IT vendors will agree, if their clients are not able to cleanse or to have adequate data for those wonderful algorithms, it doesn't work. And I saw many cases of IT projects where nobody was thinking about data quality assessments nor data cleansing. And it's crazy to forget that in terms of implementation of any IT system, fraud or money laundering related detection systems. So number 10, we almost made it. IT monitoring systems can manage by central head office. That's also something. It saves money. It helps to have the same level playing field, but as the regulator is challenging the local money laundering reporting officer to have full control over the systems, it is sometimes very difficult to explain to the regulator that you have the full control and you know everything, what the system is doing, and how you follow up on that, how this is connected to your risk analysis. It's something where there is a gap, and I can encourage all the IT system firms to have this kind of administration module in place, so the local, the user, the local money laundering reporting officer is as well able to understand and to get out of reports out. So he's not only he's not challenged to always go to the head office if he wants to have some further information how the system is working. So, and the conclusion is, during my, I think it's almost 30 years in that business, it hasn't changed too much. So it's very, we have a lot of basic principles. Think first before you put safeguards in place. Do you have the time for it? Do you have the right budget for it? Is the management understanding what you're trying to achieve and how they will be supported with, to protect them? Very difficult. Still, it's very difficult, especially in those COVID times, with a lack of revenue and difficult to maintain the turnovers. So do I make it better than others? No, I learned a lot in my career and I'm still fighting. But maybe those ideas and let's say difficulties to share with you, maybe it helps to fulfill your obligations and to make your life easier. So thank you very much.